Well, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Wanderlust Wednesdays on Viking.TV. My name is Neil, and I'm based in Viking's London office, where I've worked for the past 13 years. And this is a very exciting week for Viking. Yesterday, we're on the 18th of May today. Yesterday, the 17th of May, was Norway's Constitution Day. So, gratulerer med dagen. And what an exciting week we have for you. We had the Viking Mars christened in Malta yesterday. We've got a week of all things Norwegian, and I'm delighted tonight, or this morning, or this afternoon, wherever you are watching in the world, to be talking about one of my favourite itineraries, Into the Midnight Sun. This really is a phenomenal itinerary for you to get the best that Norway's coastline has to offer. You visit such fascinating places, you learn about the history, the Norwegian people. So it's definitely one that should be on your bucket list. So I've got my colleague Scott in the background. So after the presentation, we'll be around to answer as many questions as we can. And if we don't know the answer, we will certainly do our best to find them out for you. So sit back, relax, and hopefully you'll enjoy this presentation of Into the Midnight Sun.
Experience the wonders of Norway and the British Isles on this 15-day journey with Viking. In fascinating Bergen, you'll have plenty of time to explore its intriguing history with an overnight stay. Then it's on to the majestic Geiranger Fjord, where rugged beauty is found around every corner. You'll sail the Inside Passage and cross the Arctic Circle to Tromso, with its Arctic Cathedral and Polaria Museum. Honningsvåg and the dramatic North Cape come next, followed by the craggy peaks of the Lofoten Islands, home to ancient Viking traditions. On Scotland's Shetland Islands, meet some of the world's friendliest residents. The Orkney Islands bring rugged coastlines and windows into ancient times. While Scotland's capital, Edinburgh, presents an intriguing collection of medieval and neoclassical architecture. Your Viking journey concludes with a sail along the Thames River, through the Barrier and into London's maritime Greenwich, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, where you'll enjoy an overnight stay so you can take in this regal city and all its splendour.
Well, I do hope that short video has given you a taster of our Into the Midnight Sun cruise. It's one of my firm favourites, as it not only takes in some of the most spectacular scenery in Norway, but you also visit London, Edinburgh, plus the Orkney and Shetland Islands along the way. So let's take a closer look at this 15-day Midnight Sun itinerary, which operates in two directions, either starting in Bergen and ending in London, or the direction we're looking at today, from London to Bergen. So what's the best direction to sail in? Well, there's no real difference as you visit the same ports and cities in either direction, and you have an overnight on board in both London and Bergen, regardless of the direction. One thing I'll point out is the time that you arrive or depart in London can vary by the date of your cruise, and the sailing along the Thames River is pretty spectacular in my view. So check with our contact centre, who can advise you of the expected times we will navigate this waterway. Regardless of what time of day or night, get your cameras at the ready, as you won't want to miss this view. The map shown on screen gives you a better idea of the itinerary in question. We'll start off in London, where you'll have an overnight stay on board, travel north to Edinburgh, my home city, further north still to the Orkney and Shetland Islands. Now, as you head towards and above the Arctic Circle, you'll notice the days become much longer. As we journey through the Lofoten Islands, day becomes night, reaching Tromso, the capital of Arctic Norway. Finally, we're on top of the world in Honningsvåg and the land of the midnight sun, before we travel south to Bergen, visiting the spectacular Geiranger Fjord along the way. As well as viewing some of the most spectacular views on land, we actually have 4 scenic sailing days on this cruise, where you'll want front row seats in the Explorer Lounge or be out on deck, because day or night you do not want to miss out on what's around the next corner. So first things first, when's the best time to go? Our Into the Midnight Sun itinerary operates in June and July, and we're on sale for both the 2022 and the 2023 season. So currently we have 6 departures in total covering 2022 and 2023, so availability is always very limited on these sailings. There are lots of highlights on this voyage. However, you're heading to the land of the midnight sun, where the sun never sets above the Arctic Circle. Temperatures can vary considerably. June and July in the UK is generally very pleasant, with temperatures during the day ranging from around 16 to 22 degrees centigrade, so around 62 to 74, 75 Fahrenheit. In Norway, it can be just as varied, with temperatures from around 13 degrees centigrade, so 56 Fahrenheit, to 19, 20 degrees centigrade, which is around 68 to 70 Fahrenheit. However, nothing is guaranteed, especially the weather in this part of the world, so always pack for every eventuality. And I always recommend that you wear layers, so if it is a bit cooler, you're well prepared. As the saying goes, there is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. So t-shirts, jumpers, a fleece, plus a waterproof jacket are always recommended. But in addition, always remember your sunscreen and sunglasses, as it's definitely a land for all seasons. One thing I'd like to mention is we sometimes get asked if you'll see the Northern Lights on this cruise. Well, the answer is no. You would need to travel in the winter time to try and witness the Northern Lights. And thankfully, we also have a voyage departing then as well. So midnight sun summer, Northern Lights winter. Prior to joining your cruise, we offer 2 extension packages which give you an ideal opportunity to explore more on land before you embark on the Midnight Sun cruise. And I'd also recommend pre-extension if you're flying on a long-haul flight, so at least you have time to acclimatise before you get on board. So the extensions I'd like to highlight are shown on the screen. The first one is a 2-night hotel stay in a very central London location. And this is ideal for independent travellers who like to get out and about and explore the city, maybe take in some theatre in London's busy West End. And London's a great city to navigate on foot or using our underground train system. Or you can learn about Sir Winston Churchill on our 5-night extension, Churchill's Britain, which gives you privileged access to the Churchill war rooms, plus a visit to his family home at Chartwell. We have an excellent video at Viking.com, which will tell you more about this unique extension. So 15 days, 9 guided tours and a voyage that you will remember forever starts in London. It's day 1, and if you've arranged air travel through Viking, we'll transfer you from the airport to your ship, which will be waiting for you in the port of Greenwich. I absolutely love this slide on screen as it shows you how central we actually dock. One of the benefits of travelling with Viking on our small ships is that we can get closer to the heart of the city. In the foreground, you can see Greenwich, and the tall buildings in the background are that of Canary Wharf, where many financial institutions have their headquarters. This part of the voyage is like being on a river cruise, as we are so close to shore. Everybody comes out and waves as the ship passes, takes pictures, and there's a real excitement as we begin to navigate the Thames River. Many of the large ocean liners dock up to 2 hours away, whereas with Viking, you can be in central London within 30 minutes. It's around 5 minutes on a tender to take you right into the heart of the Royal Borough of Greenwich, with its maze of small streets and alleys, with local independent shops, restaurants and cafes to spend a lazy afternoon. Our included tour today is a 2-hour walking tour of Greenwich, learning about the history of this royal borough and taking in Cutty Sark, the world's only surviving tea clipper and fastest sailing ship when it was built in 1869. You'll visit Greenwich Market with its arts and crafts stalls and learn the history of the old Royal Navy College, which is the centrepiece of this historic area. In London, we're proud to offer you 3 privileged access tours. The first is a visit to the home and private museum of world-renowned architect Sir John Soane. During this after-hours tour, you'll see collections of marble sculptures, paintings and furniture. You'll also view paintings by Canaletto and Turner, as well as a 3,000-year-old Egyptian sarcophagus. Or visit the Tower of London after hours to learn about the many great events during its 1,000-year history. The Tower has served as a royal palace, fortress, prison, place of execution and jewel house. And here you can witness the age-old tradition of the ceremony of the keys performed by the chief of the Beefeaters. We have around 6 optional excursions available from Greenwich. However, as we're also docked overnight, there's time to explore independently. You can take a hop-on, hop-off water taxi from Greenwich Pier to Westminster in around 20 to 30 minutes. I'd recommend purchasing a prepaid card, which allows you to travel on buses and underground routes across the city. As you have this unique opportunity of spending overnight in port, it gives you ample time to explore. It's day 3, and after 2 days in London, you'll enjoy a day sailing on the North Sea, where you can really get to know your ship. The great thing is our ships are identical, so if you've travelled with us on ocean previously, it won't take you long to remind yourselves of where everything is. And if you're new to Viking, welcome. And I'd say within 30 minutes, you'll have found your bearings and your favourite spot on the ship. One tradition that happens without fail on board is afternoon tea in the Winter Garden. And this is a unique, bright and airy space with lots of natural light. Every day at 4 p.m, you'll be accompanied by the classical trio or a resident pianist or guitarist as you indulge in a menu of teas, sandwiches, cakes and scones. And remember, with Viking, there is absolutely no charge for this afternoon tea on board. It's day 4, and you may have enjoyed breakfast in the World Cafe or on your private veranda. However, I'm very excited to tell you it's 8 a.m. and you're in Edinburgh, Scotland's capital, my home city, and it's time to get out and explore. We anchored just outside Edinburgh in the fishing port of Newhaven in the north of the city, and our tenders will take you ashore, and from there the centre of Edinburgh is only around 20 minutes away. Today's included tour is a 4-hour panoramic tour taking in the highlights of Edinburgh, including the new town with its Georgian architecture and the old town with its cobbled streets, including the Royal Mile running from the castle, which you can see on screen, right down to Holyrood House. One of our optional tours in Edinburgh takes you to the 12th century Edinburgh Castle, where you can see the crown jewels, along with a visit to the 16th century Holyrood Palace, an official residence of Queen Elizabeth II, and home to Mary, Queen of Scots, and Bonnie Prince Charlie. One of our privileged access optional tours gives an exceptionally rare glimpse into Scottish royal history on our tour at Broomhall House. After remaining closed for centuries, Broomhall House, the ancestral home of the Bruce clan, descended from Robert the Bruce, will open its doors for your exclusive visit. The Bruce family has been at the heart of Scotland's history since the 12th century, when Robert the Bruce took the throne and secured Scottish independence from England at the Battle of Bannockburn. A member of the Bruce family will greet you, and following a welcome drink, you can enjoy a fascinating journey through 1,000 years of Scottish history. Broomhall boasts many elegant furnishings, an internationally important collection of fine art and priceless heirlooms, such as the Sword of State of King Robert the Bruce. Edinburgh and the surrounding areas are full of history, and you can pay a visit to the Royal Yacht Britannia, or for golf enthusiasts, there's an opportunity to visit the historic Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St Andrews that dates back to 1754, and that's approximately 2 hours from Edinburgh. Having left Edinburgh 22 years ago, every time I go back, I rediscover places I haven't seen for years and discover the city as a tourist. One of my favourite areas is the new town with its handsome Georgian architecture and quirky shops and cafes. And Edinburgh is a really accessible city with lots of greenery, and some of the best views are from the castle area, where you can gain uninterrupted views of the city. Now, one thing you'll notice is that there are no skyscrapers, with the tallest building, St Mary's Church, being only 90 metres high. We leave Edinburgh at 6 p.m. and head further north, and as we progress on our journey, we'll learn more about the Vikings' influence in this part of the world. After a good night's sleep, we'll wake up on day 5 and the rugged beauty of the Orkney Islands. Kirkwall, the capital of the Scottish Orkney Islands, is closely tied to Viking history, and the city was first mentioned in the 13th century Norse Orkney Inga saga, depicting a time when Norse earls ruled the region. Today, the city is rich in ruins and relics from the Viking Age. Our included tour today is a panoramic tour of the island lasting just under 3 hours, which takes in Stromness, a picturesque town with a working fishing harbour, as well as a scenic drive to the Ring of Brodgar, a ceremonial of 27 remaining standing stones dating back almost 5,000 years, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. You might take in the Stone Age settlement of Skara Brae, which is called the Scottish Pompeii because of its remarkably preserved dwellings, and Skara Brae is actually older than Stonehenge. If you want to get out and explore the great outdoors, we also have some walking tours along the coastal paths that you can experience with a local expert guide. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Orkneys have strong connections with the Vikings, who ruled these rugged landscapes from the 9th to the 13th century. So let's find out a bit more about their presence.
In the 8th century, Scotland's rugged Orkney Islands were coveted by the Vikings. The vast, fertile lands and easy access to Britain ultimately proved irresistible, and the archipelago fell under Norse control for nearly 600 years. While the Vikings have long since vanished, part of their culture remains, including language, like the name Orkney, shortened from the Viking original, Orkneyar. Perhaps the best-known area of the Orkneys is Scapa Flow, where the calm surface of this waterway belies its turbulent past. It was here at the end of World War I that more than 50 German warships were scuttled by their own sailors. Tragedy struck again in 1939, when the British warship Royal Oak was torpedoed and sunk. Today, only the block ships remain, silent witnesses to the tragedies that unfolded in these waters. One of the Orkney's more unusual sights is a tiny chapel built by Italian prisoners of war. Using ingenuity and imagination, they transformed a corrugated steel building, plus whatever scraps they could find, into a sacred work of art. In the heart of Kirkwall lies another treasure, the Cathedral of St. Magnus. Built by the Norse Earls of Orkney nearly 900 years ago, it holds the unusual distinction of being owned by the city rather than the church, and of possessing its own dungeon. The Orkneys also have remnants of long-lost civilizations. The Ring of Brodgar and the standing stones of Stenness start the imagination running. These Neolithic monuments may be the oldest in the British Isles, dating back to approximately 2500 BC. And along the coast, the settlement at Skara Brae is older still. It's the best preserved Neolithic village in Western Europe and offers a fascinating window into the past. Scotland's remarkable Orkney Islands present an extraordinary tapestry of natural and cultural wonders. I hope you too will do what I did and explore the heart of this archipelago for yourself.
Now, before we leave Orkney, if you're a lover of whisky or you want to learn more about the making of this national drink, you must experience our optional privileged access tour of the Highland Park Distillery, where you'll learn more about the ingredients and processes, along with tastings from the world's most northerly distillery. Your experience of just under 6 hours concludes with a bottle of Highland Park to take home with you. Now, you don't have to wait until you get home to savour the delights of this unique blend. No. Remember, at Viking, we have a no corkage fee, and you're welcome to bring your bottle of Highland Park along with any other alcoholic purchases back on board to enjoy at no charge. It's now time to say goodbye to the Orkney Islands as we sail to our next stop, the Shetland Islands. We're on day 6 at 7 AM and welcome to Lerwick. here on the Scottish Shetland Islands. Lerwick is a small town and easy to explore independently on foot. This is one of my own shots, not up to the standard of the other images on this presentation. However, it was taken on a warm, sunny day in July, just a short walk from Lerwick's High Street, so you never know just what's around the corner. We offer 6 optional excursions to choose from. However, our 2-hour included panoramic tour takes you by motor coach to the main sites of the Shetlands, along with a visit to a local Shetland pony breeder, and you can learn more about these small ponies, which have existed on the islands for over 2,000 years. Let's discover more about these unique animals.
The wind-swept Shetland Islands, where the Atlantic Ocean collides with the North Sea, is home to some unique and fascinating characters.
I was born and bred in the house that I'm still in, and I've stayed in Shetland all my life.
Carol Fuller is a wrangler and breeder whose family has long loved the island's iconic residents.
There have been 3 generations that's had the Shetland ponies. They're part of my life.
While the Shetland pony dates to the Bronze Age, it was primarily breeding with Duele ponies brought by the Vikings that created the sprightly breed we see today.
Oh, their spirits is pretty high. They have high spirits. Everyone has a different personality. They're a big white one. She always stands with her head up, lugs up, and ears up and everything. See me.
Though the hardy Shetland pony has long thrived here, its life has rarely been easy.
When I was young, the ponies wasn't for fun, they were work horses. All the craft work was done on the ponies, they were no tractors. They did the carting in the hay, carting in the corn, ploughing the rigs, everything was done on a pony.
And in 1847, when the British banned children from the coal mines, the tough Shetland pony went to work underground. For years they were in constant demand, since these resilient, sure-footed wonders could move loads of coal up to 3,000 miles a year.
They were usually down 2 weeks and up 2 weeks. The ponies was treated very well, and they said the ponies was treated much better than the men.
In such a spacious, relaxed setting, one could easily assume that raising the highly intelligent, extremely patient Shetland pony would be a piece of cake. I was quickly assured that was not the case.
No. You must be good to them. You have to be good to them. But you have to make sure that they know you're the boss. It's just like a dog.
Much like an artist who hates to part with their paintings, Carol often holds on to her ponies. They stay and become part of the family.
At one point I had 6 generations. If they go from me as a foal, they go to some other body. But if they live past a year old, they're aside me for their life. My oldest mare was 35. She was a good old lady. She was a very good old lady.
One thing's for sure, Shetlands are highly addictive. They even hooked Queen Elizabeth, who rode them throughout her childhood. While these precocious ponies top out at only 42 inches, don't let their diminutive stature fool you. Pound for pound, they're actually the strongest of the horse family, able to pull twice their body weight. And one thing they're certainly not short of is personality.
I always say they're like the weather clock. Whichever way the wind is coming from, you'll always see them standing with their rear ends to the wind.
I hope you too will do as I did and pay a visit to Carol and her ponies in the remarkable Shetland Islands.
A few other options include a visit to Musa Island, an uninhabited island just 1.5 miles long and 1 mile wide, where you can enjoy a guided tour and embark on a 3-mile 2-hour walk, observing local wildlife, including grey seals, Arctic terns and great skuas. Another great option would be for you to visit the ancient Jarlshof to explore one of the most interesting and complex archaeological sites ever excavated in Britain. More than 5,000 years old, it features a remarkable sequence of stone structures, and the Norse longhouse here tells the story of a thriving Viking community. It's now time to relax. It's been a busy few days. We're halfway through the voyage, and this is the perfect opportunity to explore the ship and take in the breathtaking views in this part of the world. I'd be happy just to keep this shot on screen for the remainder of the presentation, as it's a constant reminder of just how beautiful our ships are. Sleek Scandinavian elegance, carrying just 930 guests with lots of space both outdoors and indoors, that you wonder where all your fellow guests are. This area is called the living room, and it's a great setting in the morning or afternoon to have a coffee and a fresh pastry and chat to your fellow guests. And remember, all specialty teas and coffees are included with Viking. In the evening, it's also the setting for Munch Moments, where you can learn more about the works of Edvard Munch on a digital screen while listening to some live music. On a voyage like this, you need to be on a ship where you can see outside and be outside as much as possible. On deck too, you'll find a wraparound deck, something that's missing on many of the larger ships, and it's a great place to do your morning walks. However, this image is of the Explorer's Lounge, 2 floors of floor-to-ceiling windows at the front of the ship, covering decks 7 and 8. This is where you want to be as you navigate the stunning coastline. And it's home to Mamsens, serving Norwegian favourites, including some of the best waffles you will ever taste, using a recipe taken from our global chairman, Torsten Hagen's mum. Or you might just want to sit on the private veranda of your stateroom with room service and catch up on the book that you've been meaning to read. These staterooms, whichever grade you choose, are equipped with everything you will need for a comfortable stay. There's lots of room under the bed to store your luggage. There's underfloor heating in the bathroom, along with a non-steam mirror. We've got plug points and USB charging ports at each side of the bed, and not forgetting free drinking water replenished daily, plus a minibar with either soft drinks or alcoholic beverages, depending on your stateroom grade. You might ask the question, why would I ever want to leave? As you make your way north from London, the days get progressively longer until day becomes night and night becomes day, as we officially reach the land of the midnight sun. Over the next 2 days of sailing, you are in the land of the midnight sun, where the sun never sets. It does take a bit of getting used to, as you can be out on deck thinking it's 9 at night, you glance at your watch and it's 2 in the morning. But this image on screen now was taken just after midnight, and shows you just why you never want to go to bed. You want to be up all night on deck, waiting to see what's around the next bend. This is what you're going for. Even in the height of the summer, the mountains are still snow-capped. Pictures really don't do this itinerary justice, if I'm honest. You need to see this for yourself, experience the midnight sun and life in the Arctic. One of the many highlights of this voyage is when you get to this point on the journey. It's 8 AM, it's day 9, we're in the Arctic Circle and we're in Honningsvåg. The ship docks just a very short walk to the town centre, and the main industry in this region is fishing. So let's find out a little bit more.
Along Norway's majestic coast, there's long been a tradition of harvesting a living from the ocean, with hardy seafarers leaving safe harbours in the hunt for fish. Today, these waters still hold that precious bounty, and they're ready to challenge those who love the outdoors, albeit in a much more fun and comfortable way. Line fishing is very popular, but hand lining is the technique many locals prefer. It's quick and easy to learn, since all you need is fishing line, lure, and a bit of good luck. In some of Norway's more remote bays, an exotic prize requires a different kind of fishing. The catch, the highly prized red king crab, measuring up to 6 feet between their claws. At water's edge, the traditional tents of the native Sami people are a relaxing place to sample these tasty crustaceans from the deep. The quest for fish can extend into the fjords, where sparkling rivers offer a tranquil setting in which to experience the pristine wilderness, while enjoying the sheer delight of mastering an entirely new skill. Norway's breathtaking waterways are some of the best places I've found to get in touch with life as the locals live it. I hope you'll do as I did and head out to explore the wonders of Norway for yourself.
This iconic image will be known to many. Today's included excursion lasts just under 4 hours and takes you to this very point, Nordkapp, or North Cape. You're on top of the world and you're looking out at absolutely nothing. There's nothing for miles and miles, but what an experience. Sometimes it can be misty up here, but when the mist clears and you see the iconic globe perched on a cliff over 1,000 feet high, it's simply breathtaking. And you have to pinch yourself to remind yourself that you're actually here. There's a lot to do here, including a museum and a screening room, which charts the history of this area. Definitely do not forget your camera for this one. There's around 7 optional tours to choose from in Honningsvåg. However, one of my firm favourites was the King Crab Safari. It was absolutely brilliant. You take a short walk from the ship to the meeting point where you change into these waterproof floating suits. Now, these aren't the most flattering in the world, however, they are absolutely necessary for this excursion. You then board a deep sea raft or rib, you head out on the waters of the fjord with your guide and proceed to catch these gigantic king crabs, measuring up to 6 feet and weighing up to 22 pounds. You then head on land where the crabs are prepared for your lunch in a traditional Sami tent. If you're a lover of the sea and especially crabs and don't mind some exhilaration, this is definitely the excursion for you. We're now heading south. It's day 10, would you believe, and we're still above the Arctic Circle as we arrive in Tromso. Tromso, Paris of the North, capital of the Arctic, and one of my firm favourites in either summer or winter. The ship docks literally in the town centre, and it's around 10 minutes walk away to the main shopping street. In Tromso, you'll find a mix of neoclassical and traditional wooden buildings. We're in Tromso until 6 p.m. and there's multiple shore excursion opportunities. Your included tour lasts around 3 hours and shows you the highlights of the gateway to the Arctic, including the stunning Arctic Cathedral and its beautiful stained glass windows. An optional excursion here is a visit to the Tromso Wilderness Centre, set in a mountainous area outside Tromso. Now, in the winter, these huskies take part in dog sledging activities. In the summer, you can go hiking with your very own husky harnessed around your waist. You'll then trot along with your furry friend. It's a great excursion for the animal lovers amongst us. Now, the image on screen now is one of my own photos that I took, and it's separate to this journey. However, it was taken at just after midnight above the Arctic. And I just wanted to show you the sort of light and colours you can experience at points along this journey. As I've said before, you will never want to go to your bed. It's day 11 and we dock in Leknes at 8 a.m. We're in the stunning Lofoten Islands. And when I say stunning, that's an understatement. Mountains, beaches, a traditional way of life. This area will definitely be one of the many highlights of this trip. The islands stretch 118 miles into the Norwegian Sea from Norway's coast. And Lofoten is home to fishing harbours, and the way of life is still very tranquil. Fishing is still the main industry in Lofoten, and this picture shows traditional roerboos, which are brightly coloured fishermen's houses. And many times you'll see stockfish or cod drying outside on vast racks. Now, our included excursion lasts around 3 hours and shows you the highlights of this stunning region. To get the best out of Lofoten, I would recommend doing at least one optional excursion. And as we have multiple times for the included tour, you can aim to fit in both an included and an optional. There's wildlife in abundance in Lofoten, and a recommended excursion would be the Sea Eagle Safari. Lasting around 2 hours, you don your waterproof suits again and take to the sea on a rib, searching for the sea eagles. And these sea eagles have wingspans reaching over 6 feet. Definitely a must-do for the nature lovers. Now, you'll probably be familiar with the Viking Way, our handcrafted range of excursions, giving you the opportunity to experience local life, working world, or privileged access, where we give you rare experiences that only Viking can. On our website, in My Viking Journey, we detail excursions available to you on each cruise. The great thing is that they're all graded by excursion type, whether that's privileged access, sightseeing, nature, so you can pick the excursion that's right for you and includes what you want to see. You can also choose an excursion based on fitness level, whether that's easy, moderate, or demanding. This Into the Midnight Sun voyage offers a whole host of options, and there's far too many to mention on this presentation, but they include Nordic hikes, fishing, helicopter tours, to name but a few. And I can't stress enough, this voyage combines culture, scenery, and the option for soft adventure if you want it. It's now time to head further south. We're on day 12, and we have a day scenic cruising the Norwegian Sea. There's lots of areas of the ship to talk about, from the infinity pool and our Viking Heritage Centre to the vast collection of artwork and the numerous entertainment options on board, including music by the Beatles, movies under the stars, or the Viking band playing in Torshaven, our cosy bar hidden away on deck too. But I want to highlight the Live Nordic Spa, found on deck 1 aboard all our ocean ships. Now, these are truly unique spaces where you can relax and unwind, and the facilities are free to use. Now, the image on screen is the changing rooms, and each changing room is equipped with a sauna, an ice-cold plunge pool. Robes and slippers are provided, and you just need your key card to use the lockers, so no coins or keys to worry about. You then step from the changing rooms into this unique space, and here you'll find a hydrotherapy pool, steam room, jacuzzi, and warm heated beds that definitely help you relax. Not to forget the ice-cold water bucket, which will certainly wake you up. Our onboard spa team are there to help and assist you and talk you through the facilities, so please use the spa. It's such a relaxing experience. And of course, the snow grotto, found on every Viking ocean ship, and used in conjunction with the heat of the steam room, it really helps rejuvenate the skin. I'd recommend partaking in the Nordic bathing ritual, which is bookable for a small fee to really immerse yourself in Norwegian bathing traditions. We drop anchor at 8 AM on day 13, and it's the spectacular Geiranger Fjord, home to 3 breathtaking waterfalls, the Seven Sisters, the Suter and the Bridal Veil, and 1,000-metre high mountains at either side. You'll most definitely be up early to get some spectacular shots of this outstanding scenery. Today's 3-hour included tour takes you on the Eagles Bend Road, high up into the mountains, giving you spectacular views of the area and of the ship, while you navigate 11 hairpin bends to witness truly outstanding scenery. One optional to choose is heading out fishing in the waters of the Geiranger Fjord on board a fishing boat. The Norwegian coast benefits from the warm currents of the Gulf Stream, making the water surrounding its long coastline full of plankton and the many species of fish that feed on them, including record-sized cod, haddock or mackerel that swim beneath the surface. Heading out to a mountain farm is another great option for something different, and here you'll have the opportunity to learn about traditional Norwegian farming here along the coast. You'll also sample goat's cheese and goat's caramels made here, and this tour includes spectacular views of the mountains and the fjord. Now, this famous Norwegian cheese is called Gjetost, and if you've ever tried one of the waffles and mamsons on board the ship and have requested an extra helping of the cheese found on top, well, here's how it's made.
In the land of the Northern Lights, locals carved out a life amid Norway's imposing landscapes. But they're not the only ones who enjoy this rugged terrain. Goats thrive here too, and archaeologists say they may have roamed these lands for 5,000 years. And from these goats come my favourite cheese in the entire world, Norwegian Geitost, Norwegian brown goat cheese. Flink pike. Geitost, also known as brunost, can be traced back centuries to the high mountain Seter, the alpine pastures where the dairy maids worked in the spring and summer when the men were off to sea. It was here that Geitost was invented in 1863 when Hove started experimenting and stumbled upon the taste that grew into a phenomenon. The treasure for which Norwegians still thank the humble goat. Technically, Geitost is not a cheese at all. Instead of curd, the whey is used, combined with milk and cream. A process of simmering and stirring that takes several hours with the milk sugar caramelizing as the water evaporates. Then it's into the molds, and once cool, the Geitost is ready to eat.
This traditional cheese is from that summer farming up in the mountains. So it was a way to preserve the milk, the source. Also, it was perfect to take away on long voyages. This brown cheese you can keep for years.
Norwegians love Geitost and devour more than 12,000 tons of it every year. Locals believe you haven't really experienced Norway if you haven't feasted on Geitost. So when you're in Norway, remember the contribution these gentle creatures make to one of our favourite foods. But be careful, you may just be tempted to take one of these cute little Geitost makers home with you. Norway is a wonderland of traditions, and we look forward to sharing with you her many treasures.
Well, here we are on day 14 and we've arrived in Bergen. Nearly time to go home, but not quite yet. And we have an overnight stay on board in this bustling city. Bergen is one of my favourite cities, and the ship docks near the Hanseatic region. And from there, it's a very short stroll into the centre of town, with its shops, restaurants, bars and cafes. And it's surrounded by steep mountains, glaciers and fjords. Our included tour is a panoramic tour of Bergen, lasting around 2 hours, and it helps you get your bearings so you can explore the city at your leisure. One optional is our Working World excursion to visit the Dala of Norway factory, and you can learn how these traditional jumpers are made. Or, for music lovers, I thoroughly recommend a visit to Trollhaugen, home of the famous composer and pianist Edvard Grieg. Not only is it a stunning setting, you'll also experience an exclusive recital of his music and visit the famous Fantoft Stave Church, built entirely of wood in 1150 and moved to its current site in 1883. But let's discover a bit more about the life, works and music of Edvard Grieg.
Majestic scenes on canvas, local culture, music and traditions. In the 19th century, Norwegian Romanticism set out to preserve these elements of national identity. This patriotic movement inspired the imaginations of all Norwegians, including Edvard Grieg, who painted the essence of Norway with music, often incorporating elements of folk songs and always displaying Norway's wildness.
You can hear that he's either on the top of some mountains or he has his back to the mountains and looks out to the sea.
Grieg's love of nature led him to create his own sanctuary, Trollhaugen. In this tranquil setting, his spirit and creativity soared.
Grieg needed to be in the nature. He composed barely nothing when he was in a city.
Grieg spent summers amid this beauty with his wife Nina always at his side, writing fresh and intriguing compositions to take on tour once the snows began to fall.
The winter season Grieg spent down in Europe, and of course he met a lot of influential people there, and he invited them to come back to see him in Norway during the summer. They brought their wives, their children, even their servants.
Grieg's escape was the tiny composer's hut, a place of solitude where he spent countless hours breathing life into notes on paper.
He left his guests in the morning after breakfast and went down there and worked, coming up only for meals. So he wasn't that social with his guests after inviting them.
Today, the composer's hut appears virtually unchanged and includes a subtle reminder that while Grieg is remembered as larger than life, he was actually quite a diminutive man.
When he composed down at the studio, there was an upright, normal piano, and to sit right at the piano, he needed to sit on something, and he used to sit on the collected piano sonatas of Beethoven. Luckily for Grieg and us, Beethoven composed 32 sonatas, so it's a fairly thick book.
Edvard Grieg spent 22 summers creating masterpieces while wrapped in the beauty of Trollhättan. And one wonders what would have come of the man without the place.
Grieg referred to Trollhättan, his home, as his best opus. It really reflects his personality. You can play Grieg's music everywhere, but the atmosphere, the idea of this man who built the house, that is something that you only can find within these walls. To be here and hear the music where it was created, it's really special.
Edvard Grieg left an amazing musical legacy, and we look forward to sharing with you more about the man and his gift.
And here we are, it's day 15, it's the end of the cruise, and look at that beautiful shot of the Bergen area of Bergen. Absolutely spectacular. If you'd like to see the beauty of Norway in the winter time, think about our In Search of the Northern Lights voyage, which departs between January and March and gives you a unique opportunity to try and view the Northern Lights. It doesn't have to be time to say goodbye yet, of course. We have a few extensions you can add on to make the most of your time in this region. There's lots to do in the Bergen area, and one day doesn't do it justice. So we offer a 2-night extension where you can explore independently. It's a very compact city, it's very easy to get your way around. And I'd recommend that you take a walk to the top of Mount Floyn for some spectacular views. Or you can, of course, get to the top by funicular railway. You can experience Iceland and the famous Blue Lagoon on this 3-night extension. Or explore Norway's capital city, Oslo, on this 2-night extension. Featuring a scenic train ride across stunning scenery. You've experienced Norway from the sea. This is a unique opportunity to explore the interior of this country before spending time in the vibrant city of Oslo. And although I mentioned a 3-night extension in Iceland earlier, we also have our ultimate 5-night Iceland experience to choose from. So that concludes the presentation. Many, many thanks for watching. Well, the sun's still out in London. I hope you've enjoyed this brief overview of a truly spectacular voyage, the sights, the sounds, the culture of the UK and Norway, and of course, the opportunity to experience the midnight sun. I'm now available to try and answer as many of your questions as possible, so over to you. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that short presentation on Into the Midnight Sun. So I'm here to answer as many questions as I can about that itinerary, or if you have any other questions about any other itinerary, I'll do my best to answer these as well. And we've got Scott in the background who is going to be asking the questions. So over to Scott.
Absolutely. And our first question for you this evening, Neil, comes from Deborah, who's in Pittsburgh in the United States. And she asks, what are your suggestions for keeping a close to normal 9-hour sleep cycle and 3 meals a day during this cruise?
Hi, Deborah. Thanks very much for the question. Well, you're going on a Viking ship, so I'd probably say sticking to 3 meals a day is going to be very, 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 very difficult, especially with all the restaurant options and the 24-hour room service. With regards to the sleep cycle, it can, I have to say, when I was on the Midnight Sun itinerary, I never wanted to sleep. I never wanted to go to my bed. I wanted to be out on my veranda all the time because the scenery that you're passing is so fascinating. And also, it's just quite a surreal experience with the midnight sun being out there. The one thing I will say is on board the ship, the curtains are very thick, so they really do block out an awful lot of light. So that should help you, but certainly with your sleep pattern. A lot of the sleep pattern does go out of the window, especially on this cruise. It's like if you went on the Northern Lights cruise in the winter, you want to be up all the time to see what's going on and experience the true midnight sun. But as I say, they have got sort of night block curtains in the cabin that will help. It's not a scientific answer, I'm afraid, but it's sort of how I got by on the days that I did want to go to my bed and sleep. Just shut the curtains, set your clock initially back to maybe either whatever works for you, local time or Pittsburgh time, and then take it from there. But that's certainly my advice. Whether that's the right or the wrong answer, it's what my recommendation is. So thanks for the question, Deborah.
Thank you, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Michael, who's in New York. And he asks, will I see the Northern Lights on this cruise?
Thanks, Michael. You'll not see the Northern Lights on this cruise. So the Midnight Sun cruises really operate sort of between June and July, where you've got 24 hours of daylight north of the Arctic Circle. To see the Northern Lights, you'd have to go on our Search of the Northern Lights cruise, which is actually quite a similar itinerary. Visits different ports of call, goes much further north, but that cruise operates between January and March. And it's the same sort of itinerary. You leave from Tilbury, which is about an hour and a half outside London, or you start in or Bergen, or vice versa, and you hug the Norwegian coastline right up to Narvik in the very north of Norway. But January to March is the best time to see the Northern Lights. My suggestion, do both. Midnight Sun in summer, Northern Lights in the winter. Maybe throw a river cruise in October just to get you geared up for ocean cruise, and then you're all set. But full details of the cruises are found at Viking.com, and that will detail all the dates, the itineraries, and it also enables you to go in and book and build and price and build and book online. But it'll give you all the information that you need on there. So summertime for the Midnight Sun, winter time for the Northern Lights.
Perfect. Thank you, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Julia, who's in the US. And she asks, do you have handicap accessible facilities on board your cruise ships?
Yeah. Thanks, Julia. On all our ocean ships, everything is really accessible. I mean, we've got lifts going to all floors. In terms of staterooms, we have 2 accessible staterooms, and they're actually in the penthouse junior suite category, so PS category if you look on Viking.com. But they have wider doors for wheelchair access. You've got walk-in showers, etc. But probably what I would say is if you've got any really specific questions about a specific either condition or maybe you just want to know how easy it is to get around the ship, then certainly the Viking contact centres can help. But certainly on our ocean ships, there is no issues whatsoever in terms of accessibility around the ships or going out on sun deck, etc. But in terms of staterooms, we have 2 with the disabled access, which are, as I said, penthouse junior suite category. So online we'll be able to give you more information on that. Also, I should point out that for all our excursions, they're also categorised in terms of how easy or difficult that they are. So you can certainly work out which one is right for you. And full details of all these can be found at My Viking Journey. So
thank you very much. And our next question for you this evening is from Mary, who is in the US, and she says, we are interested in the Midnight Sun cruise for 2024, but she doesn't see any dates listed. Will it be offered in 2024?
Hi Mary, yes, it will be offered in 2024. I can guarantee it'll be offered in 2024. So we've got 2022 out, which has been out for a number of years. There's very limited availability on that, and you'll see that on the website. Even our 2023 departures, we have got 4 2023 departures operating between June and August, and 2024 will be coming soon. So just keep an eye on the website or contact the contact centre, and they'll be able to sort that out for you. And our midnight sun cruises operate really between June and August, which is when you get 24 hours of daylight north of the midnight sun. The one thing I'll point out, it doesn't really matter what direction that you do this cruise in either leaving from Greenwich and heading up the coastline of Norway back to Bergen, or Bergen sort of back to Greenwich. There's no real difference. You visit the same ports of call. It just sometimes, depending on the direction that you go in, that you'll find you're maybe slightly longer, maybe slightly less time in port. So again, you can always check with your cruise consultant to see which is the best option for you. But 2024 is coming soon, so don't despair. It will be here shortly.
And our next question for you today comes from Tom, who is in the United States. And he asks, are excursions available for June 2023 for this cruise, as well as restaurants reservations available? I can't see them on My Viking Journey.
Yeah, they're not available yet, Tom. You'll find that you'll get notification via My Viking Journey or via an email that we send out nearer the time. And that will let you know when restaurant reservations are open and when excursion booking open. And that's either for your included excursion, your optional excursions as well. And the way it works in Ocean is generally dependent on stateroom grade in terms of which gets open first. But you will be notified of that. So that will be coming. And you'll find that that's generally it's around up to 90 days in advance that certainly these options can become available. But My Viking Journey, log into your account and that'll give you all the information that you need. Just remember with the restaurants, it's only the 2 alternative restaurants that you can pre-book, which is Manfredi's and the Chef's Table, and all other restaurants are just a case of the main restaurant, you just go to the maitre d' and request a table, whenever you want to eat. There's no set timing for it. And then everywhere else, whether that's in the World Cafe or the pool deck, then that's just eating as you require. There's no pre-booking or anything for that. So keep an eye on My Viking Journey, and these details will be coming soon.
Thank you, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Pat, who is in Midland in the United States. And she asks, will the tour cover Sunnmore in Norway?
Thanks, Pat. It doesn't. The Midnight Sun itinerary doesn't include that area, which I believe is fairly near Geiranger. So you'll still get fantastic scenery, etc., but we don't operate an excursion to that itinerary. I'm just trying to think on my feet here. I'm wondering if one of our other itineraries will. Sometimes our combination itineraries, I may be off track here, but sometimes our combination itineraries visit Ålesund, which is in the vicinity that you're looking for. So not this specific itinerary, but I think we may have a combination itinerary which combines 2 cruises which may visit that area, but not this specific one, I'm afraid.
Yeah, Neil, you're absolutely correct. It's our combination cruises that gets linked with our Iceland's Natural Beauty cruise, I believe, off the top of my head, but I'm just looking at it now. Majestic Iceland it is. So if you go on our Majestic Iceland cruise, you do have the opportunity to visit Sunnmore, and sometimes our Majestic Iceland cruise is combined with our Viking Homelands cruise, as well as our British Isles cruise as well. So there is definitely an opportunity to visit, but not on this cruise, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but just on that, you'd probably, if you'd done one of our other cruises and had visited Ilesund, for example, you would probably have to go off independently to visit the place that you're looking to visit, rather than be an included tour or an optional tour. So check the website for that information. So it's not on this cruise, but it looks like there's an opportunity to visit that area on one of the other ones.
Absolutely correct. But our next question for you comes from Carol, who is in the US, and she asks, how often is this trip offered?
Thanks, Carol. So in 2022, so in this year, we have got 2 more departures, 25th of June and the 15th of July. And 2023, we've got 4 departures, June, July, and the beginning of August. And then in 2024, I would imagine it would be something similar, which will be around sort of 3 or 4 departures. So as I say, 2024 is coming soon. 2023, you've got 24th of June, 18th of July, 22nd of July, and the 1st of August. All brilliant times to experience that part of the world, and all the information is on Viking.com, so you can check which date suits you.
And our next question for you, Neil, comes from Sheila, who is in the UK. And she says she's very much looking forward to our Midnight Sun cruise next year in 2023. But her question is, are there any favourite excursions that you can recommend that we shouldn't miss?
Thanks, Sheila. I would have to say the King Crab Safari. I absolutely loved the King Crab Safari. It was amazing. You're up in Honningsvåg. You go all decked out, you go on the rib, you go right out to the middle of the fjords, and they basically pull these king crabs from the fjord, which you then go and cook, and that's what you have for your lunch. It is an absolutely amazing itinerary, excursion. So don't miss that one at all. I like being water, so actually in Geiranger Fjord, there's some great hikes that you can do from the ship in Geiranger Fjord, or you also have some kayaking as well. And kayaking around Geiranger Fjord is truly spectacular, because you've got these 1,000-metre mountains at either side of you, you've got the waterfalls, and you just feel so, you're just so small on this sort of kayak when you've got these massive mountains all around you. But that is pretty spectacular. And also the Eagle's View, Eagle Road tour around Geiranger is really, really good as well, because it gives you a really good insight into that whole area. So certainly these would be certainly 2 of my favourite ones to do. And in Bergen, if you're a fan of classical music, I'd definitely say going over to Trollhaugen, which is Edvard Grieg's sort of former residence, which is a spectacular setting, and you also get a musical recital. There's too many to mention on this. And I'm actually up in the Lofoten Islands as well, doing anything, one of the scenic tours up around the Lofoten Islands is great, because that area is just out this world. You would actually want to stay longer there. It's so peaceful, it's so tranquil, and you really get a true feel for the Norwegian way of life. So that would be my recommendation, Sheila. You've got plenty of time to think about it before you're heading off there.
Absolutely. A recommendation of do all of the excursions, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no specific one. If in doubt, mention them all.
Absolutely. And our next question comes from Sean, who is in Good Springs in the United States. And he asks, what are the different types of cabins available on board this ship?
Thanks, Sean. So the great thing about all our ocean ships compared to other cruise lines is that we're all balcony, all veranda staterooms. There's no inside cabins, there's no outside cabins with window. Whatever grade you take, you have all got a private veranda. And regardless of what stateroom that you're in, you've got access to all the same facilities on board the ship. You know, there's no segregated areas that if you're in a veranda and not in a penthouse veranda, you can't visit. The ship's open to all, which is unlike some other cruise lines as well. So the real difference is size of cabin. You start off in veranda stateroom, you then go up to deluxe veranda, and the cabin sizes are the same, veranda or deluxe veranda. You've just got some different amenities in the stateroom. So in a deluxe veranda, for example, you've got a coffee maker. you have a mini bar with soft drinks in it. Then you go up to penthouse veranda, and the penthouse verandas are slightly larger. You've got a larger veranda there, and your seating area consists of generally a sofa rather than a couple of seats. Then you're up to penthouse junior suite, which has got the separate sleeping area, explorer suite, different categories of explorer suite as well, whether you're at the back of the ship or the front of the ship, and then you're right up to the owner's suite. Whatever stateroom grade that you go for, the look and feel is exactly the same. You've got these beautiful bathrooms, you've got amazing furnishings, you've got access to all the same facilities regardless of what stateroom that you're in. And the great thing is that you've got the fresh air coming in with your private veranda. So yeah, if you go again, Viking.com, you can do a walk around of the ship actually and the staterooms, and you've also got a deck plan, an interactive deck plan, which will tell you where all the staterooms are located. But yeah, it's whether you're in a veranda or an owner's suite, you're going to have exactly the same experience and access to all the phenomenal facilities on board the ship. I wish I was back on board. It's been last year since I was on, so I think it's time for another trip, Neil. So I'll have to get myself on board, I think.
And our next question for you, Neil, comes from Michael, who's in the United States. He says that they are booked on the 24th of June Mars combined cruise with Into the Midnight Sun and Baltic Jewels. But they're unsure whether they're required to deboard the ship and then reboard during the handover. What's the procedure for when you book a combined cruise?
Generally, you don't. I'd imagine you've been allocated the same stateroom for the whole 28-night journey. So when you're on a turnaround day, there's at this time there's no requirement to disembark the ship. In some countries, depending on local regulations, the local authorities require I suppose a zero head count, so that there's no guests on board the ship at a certain period. But certainly on that itinerary, to my knowledge, you just carry on and go about your business and enjoy your cruise without having to get off the ship or disembark and check in again. So yeah, it's pretty smooth run, that one.
Thank you, Neil. And our next question comes from Kathy, who's in Gig Harbor, which is in the US. And her question is, what is the best, warmest times of the year to take this cruise?
So we operate this cruise between June and August, which is generally the warmest time to visit Scandinavia. But as the Norwegians say, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. So take, regardless of how the weather should be, always take certainly layers with you, maybe a light waterproof jacket. We provide umbrellas on the ship if necessary, sunglasses, because the weather can change all the time. But I've always been really lucky when I've been in Scandinavia in the summer, and the weather's been sort of mid-70s upwards, which is 56, maybe about 28 degrees centigrade, about 76 Fahrenheit or so. When you're up, up in Scotland, it can be as warm as that. But then it can always be also be maybe as cold as sort of 8 or 9 degrees when you're up in Tromso or north of the Arctic Circle. It's really, really changeable. So take clothing for all seasons and pack layers is my recommendation. But this should be the warmest time to visit. Remember, having great weather in the UK at the moment. I'm in London, and it's great weather for the UK. If you're sitting in Florida or something, I'm sure it's a lot warmer, but it's been blue skies, sunshine, 24 degrees today, so it's been up in the mid-70s. So it's unpredictable. Pack for all seasons, pack layers, but you are going at the optimum time for what should be the best weather in Scandinavia and the UK.
Our next question for you comes from Nola in New York, and she says she's looking forward to seeing London on this cruise, but what attractions in the city would you recommend?
Thanks, Nola. It really depends what you're after. You've got all the main sites. You've got the Tower of London. You've got sort of Westminster. You've got Buckingham Palace. You can do all the main sort of tourist sites, if you like. But it's really nice to actually maybe just explore independently. And there's some great areas of London that you can visit, whether your interest is in sort of local culture or foods. There's some great markets. The ship, there are a couple of itineraries or a couple of dates where the ship docks in Tilbury, but from recollection, the two coming up in June and July, you're in Greenwich, which is excellent. So that is really accessible to get into London independently. So obviously you'll have the panoramic tour included, or a walk-in tour. There's some optional excursions that you can do as well. But if you're independent, the great thing about Greenwich is that you can take a water taxi. So in Greenwich, where the ship docks, it's tendered, and you take a small boat to take you onto the mainland, which literally takes 2 minutes to get into Greenwich. And as soon as you get off there, you can then take a water taxi, which will take you right up to Westminster. And from there, you can walk around and see what's what. But you've got some great areas. Greenwich, where the ship docks, is a phenomenal area. There's lots of shops and bars and restaurants and cafes. You've got the Maritime Museum there. You've got the Cutty Sark. But then there's some areas of London which are great for foodies. For me, if you're just wanting to relax and enjoy London without maybe doing the sort of tourist trail, sort of head along the South Bank. So again, you can take a water taxi to, I don't know, maybe somewhere like Blackfriars, and then you can walk right along the South Bank. And there's a lot of street artists and cafes and restaurants and pop-up stalls, and then you can walk across the river and maybe head over towards Westminster and walk around that area. Then maybe head through sort of Mayfair, where you've got all your fancy shops, and then maybe go over to Green Park, which is a great area just to sit in the sunshine and take in London atmosphere. So there's so many things to do, and the great thing is, again, in Greenwich and on board, we've got people that can point you in the right direction, whether it's our guest service staff on board, or we have generally sometimes the local tourist authorities come on board as well, or meet you off the ship and tell you the best way to get around the city. So there's not one thing I would pinpoint. It really depends what you're looking for. But you can certainly do all the main attractions as part of a tour with Viking, or explore independently, and it's a great city to walk around on foot as well. So there's so many different experiences that you can have, really.
Thank you, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Peter, who's in Denver in the United States. He says the North Sea can be pretty rough. So what has been your experience on previous cruises on this route?
Thanks, Peter. I have had no issues at all on the North Sea when I've been doing that, and especially if you're travelling in the summer months, it's generally the calmer time to go. If you do get a bit seasick on board, speak to our guest services on team on board, and they can normally recommend something or help you out with some degree of seasickness. But honestly, don't let that be a concern for you whatsoever. It's I personally have never experienced any issues on the North Sea, and I've been on it a few times, whether it's on a ship or on a ferry, and I've been okay, actually. So I'm sure you will be as well. But thanks for the question, Peter.
Absolutely. And our next question for you, Neil, comes from Candy, who's in Charlotte in the United States. She's got a group of people coming on board the Northern Lights sailing next year. But she asks, do we offer a packing list at all?
That's a good question, Candy. And we I'm just trying to remember. Do we offer a packing list? I've got a funny feeling on the website. In previous documentation that I've looked at, we used to have suggested a suggested packing list, and I think on the website again we either do or we used to have suggested packing what to wear for the itinerary that you're on. But having done the Northern Lights itinerary a few times, it's just similar to what I said earlier. The first thing is going to the Northern Lights in the winter. We operate between January and March, and it's a very dry, cold up in Norway. So again, pack layers, pack good footwear, with sort of grips on them for walking around, because the further north that you get, there'll most likely be snow on the ground. But if you're in Bergen, for example, there's generally not snow on the ground, so you need maybe lighter weight footwear. You can take lightweight waterproof trousers with you and a waterproof jacket. But remember, if you're doing any of the excursions, this is the Northern Lights cruise we're talking about, not Midnight Sun. So if you're doing dog sledging or snowmobiling, or you're staying over in the Igloo Hotel, we provide all the gear for you. So you really don't have to take anything bulky. So take layers with you, a fleece, waterproof jacket, take sunglasses in the winter as well, a hat, gloves, and good walking shoes. But again, if you speak to the group organizer at Viking or the Viking consultant, they can certainly help you with some packing information. But don't pack big, heavy, bulky items, because, as I said, for the excursions, these are included. So you don't have to concern yourself with that. Pack layers, pack a fleece, pack a lightweight waterproof, gloves, hat, scarf, sunglasses, and then I think you're good to go, really.
Thank you, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Pat, who is in Huntington Beach in the United States. And she asks, would a person using a walker be able to enjoy this cruise?
Yes, you would. Absolutely, Pat. So the ship, as I said, is completely accessible. And when you're going on your excursions, if it is a walking tour, first of all, you've got the Quiet Box headsets, so you can go at your own pace, and you can pick the excursion that's right for you. Whether it's if it's one of the more moderate or excursions, then that can be catered for as well. So yeah, you would be fine for that, actually, Pat. So yeah, no problems. Definitely for the Midnight Sun cruise. Northern Lights cruise, probably slightly trickier, just generally with the landscape when you come off the ship. But Midnight Sun cruise, I can't foresee. Yeah, you'd be absolutely fine.
Thank you, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Jeremy, who is in the UK. And he asks, do the days spent in the Schengen zone countries count towards your allowance at all?
I think they will. You probably have to look at the gov.uk website to clarify that. I'm trying to remember. This is a UK specific question geared around how many days you're allowed to sort of travel to the European Union from the UK. And I believe, I wouldn't want to say 100%, but I believe that if you are visiting that area, it would count towards your days. But you'd really be best to double check the gov.uk website for that, Jeremy, because I really don't want to give wrong information out. I think I'm correct in what I'm saying, that they would count towards it, but double check on the gov.uk website. But I would be under the impression it would count towards your days, yeah.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah, I was a bit unsure on that one myself, to be honest. And our next question for you comes from Mark, who is in West Richland in the United States. And he asks, can Viking arrange to attend the tattoo while in Edinburgh?
Thanks, Mark. Unfortunately, we can't. And for anybody that doesn't know what the tattoo is, in Edinburgh, every summer, in August on the Edinburgh Castle, the Castle Esplanade, which is the area before you get into the castle. You get fantastic views of the city. They set it up for the military tattoo, and that's where sort of musicians, acrobats, folklore shows, etc., come from all over the world, and they perform at the Edinburgh Military Tattoo, which takes place every year. It's not happened for the last couple of years actually, but I think it's on schedule for this year. There's thousands of people that attend. It happens in the evening, and it happens for quite a long period of time. And Edinburgh can be exceptionally busy at that time in August, because there's a lot of other events going on as well. But the ship, when you are in Edinburgh, it departs at 6 p.m. and the military tattoo generally starts at around 7:30 or 8. So we can't offer that as an excursion or so. The only thing that you could maybe do was if you wanted to extend, you will visit Edinburgh on this cruise, but if you wanted to extend your stay in London, either the beginning or the end, then you could fly or take the train up and maybe spend 2 or 3 days in Edinburgh and then fly home from there if you wanted to experience it, but you wouldn't experience the military tattoo on this cruise. So sorry about that, but there are other options if you wanted to do it independently from the cruise.
Thank you, Neil. Our next question for you comes from Martha in Vancouver, and she asks, is there room for suitcases under the beds on the ocean and river ships?
Yes, there is. Absolutely, 100%. And that's where I store my luggage. So yeah, you can get rid of your suitcases, not see them until 2 weeks later. So there is plenty of room under there, and that leaves your wardrobe free for anything that you're bringing with you. And if you've never experienced a Viking bed before, they're the comfiest beds in the world that you will want to buy one and take it home with you, as are the pillows. So that's as an aside, but to answer your question, you can pack your put your luggage under the bed.
Thank you, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Tom, who's in Naples in the US. He asks, do you provide single cabins for solo travellers?
Thanks, Tom. We don't actually. It's double occupancy on our river and our ocean ships. So there would be a supplement chargeable for that. So again, if you double check on Viking.com or speak to one of your reservations consultants or your agency, and explain you're a single traveller, and then they can search for the best available price for you. But we don't have single occupancy staterooms on our river or our ocean or our expedition ships.
Our next question for you comes from Janine, who is in the United States. And she says, we are taking this trip mid-July. And she knows you said about layers of clothes earlier, but she asks, are long pants recommended for all places on this cruise?
Thanks, Janine. I mean, obviously it depends on the weather. If you're going hiking and you've got shorts on, or if it's sunny outside, shorts are fine. Sometimes maybe if you're doing a hike and if you're going up into the mountains, maybe take longer pants with you, just so that you're not getting sort of bitten or sort of rubbing your legs against a thorn or something like that, just to be on the safe side. Again, it would just really be subject to sort of weather conditions as well, but whether you're shorts or long pants, but maybe if you're doing hikes, then maybe take sort of longer trousers with you, just to save your leg more than anything, really.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question comes from Patricia, who's in Warsaw in the United States. And she asks, can you easily get from the centre of Edinburgh to where the ship is docked on your own?
Yes, you can. So in Edinburgh, the ship docks in the north of Edinburgh in a place called Newhaven, which is in Leith, which is around, if you think, what would it take you? 15 minutes in a cab to take you into the centre of Edinburgh, or there's local buses that will take you into the centre of Edinburgh in around, take you probably about 20-25 minutes to get you into the centre of Edinburgh. Where we dock in Newhaven, we actually, it's a tender port. So the ship will tender, and then it's one of the Viking tenders that will take you into Newhaven Harbour. And that tender ride is actually around 15 or 20 minutes from where the ship tenders to take you into Newhaven. And then probably about another 15-20 minutes would take you into the centre of Edinburgh. So completely accessible. Just give yourself enough time to get back to the ship. But Edinburgh's a great city to wander around. It's I'm going to say it's not there's quite a few hills in Edinburgh. So be prepared to climb a few hills to get up to the old town from the new town, for example. But it's an accessible city to get around on foot, and from when you get to Newhaven dock, with around 15 to 20 minutes, it will take you into the centre of the town. So yeah, completely accessible. And actually, sorry, just to that point, sorry, I wish I'd worn my glasses tonight. Actually, 8 a.m. you get into Edinburgh and you leave at 6. So if you dock at 8, you could be shoreside, say maybe have your breakfast, maybe 9:30, back on board by probably around 5:30. So you could get, certainly a good 6 or 7 hours in Edinburgh. Yeah, absolutely fine.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Larry, who's in the US. And he asks, is there a charge for any of the items in the stateroom's minibar?
No, there's not actually. Thanks, Larry. So again, depending on which stateroom grading will determine which amenities that you've got in the minibar. So in certain stateroom grades, you would have soft drinks. You've got your Cokes or your tonic waters or whatever like that. And then another stateroom grade, you've also got your liquor. So you've got, I think, Bacardi, gin, whiskey. Definitely got gin because I'm a gin drinker, so I remember that. But you've got sort of your miniatures in there, and you've got your mixers as well. And there's no charge for them. And I have to point out, I know a lot of you know this already, but Viking has a no corkage fee on ocean and river, sorry. So if you've cruised with any other cruise lines, you go ashore, if you're in Scotland, you go to a distillery, you get a fantastic bottle of whiskey, and you've got to wait 2 weeks till you get back home until you taste it, because you're not allowed to have it on board the ship. On Viking, that isn't an issue. You can bring alcohol on board, you can consume it in your stateroom, you can consume it in public areas. If you've got your own really nice bottle of wine that you want to have with your dinner, you can have it at your dinner table, and there's absolutely no corkage fee. We will not confiscate it for you. So you can bring your own alcohol on board if you want. And of course, every stateroom has got this minibar / fridge. So again, you can store everything in there. So that is very, very unique to Viking. Just as an aside on that, just talking about minibar and what's replenished daily, we have a Silver Spirits beverage package, which I would really recommend buying. And you're allowed, it's basically unlimited drinks. This is on Ocean I'm talking about, unlimited drinks daily, up to the value of $15 per drink, and that really covers absolutely everything. I think generally champagne is priced slightly higher than the $15, so it wouldn't be included in the Silver Spirits beverage package, but it is tremendous value for money. And remember, you've got your beers and your wines and your soft drinks included with your lunch and dinner, and you've also got complimentary speciality teas and coffees throughout the day and evening as well. Absolutely no extra charge. And that is just the one thing to remember, that it's a really inclusive package that we offer, from your included excursions to your drinks for lunch and dinner, and your speciality teas and coffees. So yeah, but to your point, there's no charge for the amenities that are in the fridge. I went off on a tangent there, but hopefully I've answered any other questions that are out there surrounding alcohol on board the ships.
Not a problem at all, Neil. We don't mind a tangent. Our next question for you comes from Jeff, and he asks, do the ocean ships have umbrellas available for shore excursions the same way river ships do?
Absolutely, 100%, Jeff. So no problem there at all. They're the big golf-style umbrellas with Viking branding on them. So yeah, don't bring an umbrella, that'll be provided for you. And if you leave your stateroom and you forget to get one, then 99.9% of the time, then they're at the gangway as well, and you can grab one there. So yeah, not a problem. We have umbrellas in every stateroom.
Thank you, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Emmy, who's in the US, and she asks, is there a hairdryer in each stateroom?
Yes, there is. Yeah, and it's quite a powerful hairdryer as well. You know how you go to some hotels or on some cruise lines and it's the bare minimum. These are pretty powerful hair dryers, and they're not. Again, you go to some hotels and they provide a hair dryer and it doesn't detach from the drawer. And the mirror's over at one side of the room, and you've got your hairdryer at another side of the room, and you can't pull that wire any further. Again, on all our ships, it's a standalone hairdryer that you can use anywhere in the stateroom. So there's absolutely hairdryer in every room. And remember, on ocean ships, we also have a hairdresser, a hair salon. So if you fancy getting your hair cut, then that's the place to head. Down on deck towards the spa, you'll find the beauty salon. So, but to answer your questions, hair dryers in every room. So yeah, no problem there at all.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Kirby, who is in the US. He says, we're doing this cruise on the 11th of June this year, but does Viking do the blue nose ceremony on this cruise when crossing into the Arctic Circle?
I don't believe we do the blue nose ceremony now when you cross the Arctic Circle. And the ceremony used to entail actually generally being doused with buckets of ice. And I know I've certainly on previous cruises, noticed this happen on pool deck. To my knowledge, I don't believe that the blue nose ceremony will take place on the Midnight Sun cruises at this time anyway.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question comes from Ray, who says he's doing the Midnight Sun cruise this June on the 17th through to July the 3rd. And he asks, what clothing do you first recommend that I take? And he's also got a second question for us, is can he charge his iPhone directly out of the wall, or do I need to bring an adapter?
So just as I mentioned before about clothing, packing layers, because the weather can be unpredictable. So key things are, sturdy shoes with grips on them, maybe sort of some trainers or light footwear for wandering around cities, lightweight jacket and sunglasses as well. But I mean, in June, the temperatures generally aren't too bad. When you get up to Tromso or in the north, it can feel a lot cooler. I mean, it can be 8 or 9 degrees, up in Tromso sometimes. Sometimes it can be 25, sometimes it can be 8 or 9. So it can be cooler depending where you are. So you've really got to pack for all seasons. And for your charger on the ocean ships, at each side of the bed and in the dressing table, there are USB points. So you can just take your iPhone cable. Actually, on saying that, if it's an iPhone that you've got, I mean, iPhone now, some of their cables are actually different. They're different sizes to your normal USB. So if it was one of the old style standard USBs, then absolutely fine. That'll fit in at the USB charging point at the side of your bed. If it's one of the new style Apple ones, then you would probably have to take your plug with you and an adapter in order to certainly put it into the wall. But it's a bit of a complicated answer for that. But you know, 99.9% of the time, the USB points at the side of your bed will absolutely fit your, you know, be fit for purpose to charge your phone.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Paul, who is in Lancaster in the US. And he asks, what treatments can I have done at the spa?
Thanks, Paul. You can have Nordic facials, you can have the Nordic hair ritual, you've got massages, you can have pedicures, you've got manicures. There's a whole menu of treatments that you can get there. And all sort of various price points as well. Just talking about the spa area and that area. So on deck 2, deck 2 is great. At one end of the ship, you've got Manfredi's alternative restaurant. You've got the chef's table. You've then got the main living room, which is the hub of the ship, and the 3-story atrium. And you've got a nice bar. It's a really nice area for meeting people. You know, great bar area, and they serve bar snacks as well. Walk further along, then you come to the spa area. So you've got the hair salon and beauty salon. You've then got the fitness centre, which is really well equipped, and then you've got your therapy and your massage treatment rooms. And if there's one that you're, you know, thinking of getting, then you can have a look at your TV in the room, and that will tell you all the treatments that you've got. Go and speak to one of the spa therapists, and they will talk through the menu of options for you. But remember, to use our spa is completely free. You know, again, unlike a lot of other cruise lines that can charge $50 upwards for a couple hours in the spa, ours is completely free. And in there you'll find sauna, where you've got a separate male and female changing room. You've got a sauna and a plunge pool in each changing room. You've then got the hydrotherapy pool. When you get into the spa area, you've got the snow grotto, you've got the steam room, you've got the Arctic ice bucket, which is meant to revive the senses, having ice cold water over you. So you can spend time in there, and there's absolutely no charge. Or, as I said, there's payable, chargeable treatments that you can get if you speak to the spa reception team when you're on board.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Charles, who's in Chicago in the United States. He asks, if an optional excursion is full, is it possible to get on a waiting list for a cancellation, or would they add a second excursion if there are enough requests? Yeah. And then he asks, do you do this once we're on board the ship, or can we do it before?
Thanks, Charles. So you would have to, if one of your optional excursions is full, speak to the explorer's desk on deck 2. On deck 2, and say that you want to waitlist for one of the excursions. Now, generally, if there's a lot of people waitlisting and the ground suppliers have the capacity, you know, they can put on an additional excursion. If there's only one or two, you'll find that you're just going to waitlist and wait for some cancellations coming through. And remember, the cancellations that come through could actually be on the day that the excursion takes place. So always check first thing in the morning if any cancellations have arisen that you can go on. But if any cancellations have happened, the explorer's desk and the guest service team would call your cabin and let you know that you've been successful to get on. But we can waitlist you in advance. You would have to do that when you're on board the ship.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Celia, who's in Miami in the United States. And she asks, is it possible to have more days in London pre-cruise and then have more days in Bergen post-cruise?
Thanks, Celia. Absolutely, 100%. And we offer pre- and post-cruise extensions. A couple of nights in London, or you can extend it in Bergen. And the way I always look at extensions is, if you think that actually you're not going to be back in this part of the world for a few years, make the most of it. You know, if you come to London, you know, every year or a couple of times a year, then, you know, you have to say, do I need the extension? Do I not need the extension? But if this is a once in a lifetime, or you're putting Scandinavia on your tick box, I would do as much as you can to get the true experience. I love Bergen. Bergen's one of my favourite cities. But one of the post-extensions or pre-extensions, depending on what way that you do it in, is taking the train over to Oslo. So spending time in Bergen, and then you take this 6-hour rail journey right over the mountains to get to Oslo and spend some time in Oslo. And then you can combine two really unique cities, quite different cities in Norway. But yeah, I would most definitely, if you can, add the extensions on. And you know what, it's great, you know, if you do, say you're starting off in London and you do the 2-night London extension, you've got over your jet lag, you can enjoy the city and you can board the ship refreshed. And at the end of the cruise, there's nothing worse than that final moment when you disembark the ship and you're transferred to the airport for your flight home. And you can be quite smug and saying, well, actually, I've got another 2 or 3 days in Bergen or Oslo, and I'm going to extend it. And then you can just extend your holiday further. So definitely 100% do the excursions, keep saying excursions, extensions if you can. But yeah, if you think this is a one-off and you're not going to be back, make the most of it and definitely do it.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question for you comes from John. He asks, are there any formal nights on the cruise? And in general, what's the dress code whilst on board?
Thanks, John. Absolutely no formal nights on board our ships. So all that can be left at home. And that's the beauty of our ships. There is no formality. Very, very casual during the day and during the evening, although restaurants in the evening we say no shorts. In the World Cafe, you can go in shorts because that's more sort of casual dining. But in the main restaurant, in the alternative dining, so Manfredi's, the chef's table, just sort of, you know, long pants basically, you know, sort of long trousers, but there's no tuxedos and ball gowns. It's very casual. In the evening, people, you know, you obviously, you know, generally dress smarter because it's like you're going out to a nice restaurant for your dinner, but there's no formality. And that's a very Norwegian thing. It's very, very casual on board, smart casual elegance, I suppose I would say, rather than any form of formality.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question comes from Don, who is in Fort Lauderdale in the United States. He asks, while in Edinburgh and other cities along this cruise, does Viking run a shuttle between the docks and the city centres?
Yes, we do. Yeah. Yes. Is the question. Yeah. And that is the answer. Yeah. Yes, we do.
There we go.
And you know, which is you know, there's sometimes, you know, during these times there's maybe some, you know, some challenges maybe with certainly local ports that you visit with sort of running buses, but yeah we do. And the great thing is we don't charge for these either. You know how sometimes you go on you know, other cruise lines and, you know, to do, you know, 10 minutes up the road they'll charge you $20 for the privilege of taking a coach to the main town. Again, the great thing about Viking is we don't charge. But when I've done this itinerary, yeah, absolutely. And actually in all our cruises, there's this generally a shuttle bus to take you to the nearest town. But yeah, you'll be fine.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Mark, who's in the US. He asks, during the stop in Edinburgh, is there an opportunity to visit Roslin Chapel?
Yes, there is. Da Vinci Code, Roslin Chapel. You can visit that. And if you hang on 1 second, yeah, it's 2 hour. The Da Vinci Code, Roslin Chapel, is a 2 hour excursion. Yeah, all good. Roslin Chapel, 2 hour excursion. And the great thing about that is you'll probably still have the chance to do the included tour as well. So that's an optional excursion, but you should have the chance to do the panoramic Edinburgh tour as well. So you can combine both of them to make the best out of your time in Edinburgh. So yeah, can do that for you, no problem.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question for you comes from Beverly, who is in Springfield in the US. And she says, I have friends who will be joining us for this trip in July 2023. She asks, will this presentation be repeated at a later date?
It will actually go onto Viking.TV as a recording, so you can view it as your leisure. And it generally goes up around sort of half an hour or an hour after the live stream has happened. So yeah, you can share that with them. And the question and answer session is also recorded as well, so you can skip the bits that you're not wanting to hear, basically. Yeah. But yeah, you can watch that from later on tonight if you want.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question comes from Catherine, who is in Southfield in the US. And she asks, how many pools are on board the ships?
So you have the infinity pool, which is on deck 7. So you've got the World Cafe, which is the sort of casual, is the buffet restaurant. I don't want to use the word buffet because it's so much more than that. It's just amazing. All types of seafood, sushi, hot dishes, local dishes. But towards the back of the World Cafe, you've got a lot of sun loungers, and you've also got the infinity pool, which is heated, and that's a great place to be in as you sail away from port. And you've then got the main pool on deck 7 as well, which is next to the winter garden, where you'll get afternoon tea served, and it's got a retractable roof. So if the weather is phenomenal, then the roof is open and the sun's coming in. They always keep a shaded area as well, though. And if the weather's not so good, then the retractable roof closes. So you have that pool. And then I suppose you can also count the hydrotherapy pool in the spa, which is great, actually, if you've got any sort of, back ailments or anything like that. It does wonders in the hydrotherapy pool in the spa area on deck 2. But to your main point, 2 pools: the main pool on deck 7 with the retractable roof, and the infinity pool at the back of the ship on deck 7.
Thank you very much, Neil. And our next question is our last question, as it is all we have time for today, I'm afraid. But it does come from Janine, who is in the United States. And she asks, can we use local currency towards our gratuities at the end of the voyage rather than take it home?
Thanks, Janine. And if you were giving gratuities to local guides, it's good to have that in local currency or some dollars. You can prepay your gratuities on board or before you travel, so that takes sort of any hassle out of worrying about sort of paying gratuities at the end of the cruise. If you have local currency and you're giving gratuities, I suppose it's just then the exchange rate and whatever. So if you can give dollars. I mean, you've got dollars that you could give, but gratuities on board the ship from the States can certainly be prepaid in advance to save any looking for local currency.
Thank you very much, Neil. And that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you for joining.
No problem. Thanks very much. I hope you, as I said, enjoyed the presentation, and I've answered as many questions as I can, although a couple did catch me out this evening, but we will make sure that we follow up with you. And for any other questions that you've got, please contact the contact centres. There's great frequently asked question pages on Viking.com. Everything from onboard protocols to questions about the ship and decks and what's there. We've got some great videos with walk rounds of the ship. It details all the cabin descriptions as well. So please log on to Viking.com for more information. But that's it for me. Hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you sometime in the future. And if you're booked to go on the Midnight Sun cruise, have a fantastic time. I am so jealous, and I look forward to get back up to Scandinavia very soon. So thanks for watching. Thank you.